Today, I want to talk about the discrimination in college education in China and the United States. In China, just like the United States, is affirmative action. In 1949, after the Communist Party took over the power, they implemented affirmative action to promote the status of an ethnic group in the Chinese society. In terms of education, they have a policy. One is in terms of college entrance exam. If there is a choice between the ethnic group, a student from ethnic minority background, and a Han Chinese, then the ethnic students will be accepted to the college program. Another is there's a special program catered to only minorities or a certain group of minorities. In my high school, in a class with more liberal arts oriented high school class, we had about 60 students. Two were Hui Muslim, two Manchus, and one Korean. One of the my classmates went to the university called Central University of Ethnic Minorities. Basically, you have to be a minority to be accepted by this university. They do not accept any Han students. So students from ethnic background do not have to compete with Han Chinese. All they need to, the 94% of population, all they need to do is compete with other students from other ethnic groups, which is 6% of population from 55 different ethnic groups, minority groups. I didn't have to use this program for my college education. I was able to pass the test and get into the top tier universities by my own merits. My university is actually the first tier university under Ministry of Education. So my university has a task to provide a special college program for ethnic students from Xinjiang. About 20 different ethnic groups from Xinjiang. These students did not pass the college entrance exam, but because students from Xinjiang do not speak Chinese as a first language at home. Actually, half of the Xinjiang population probably still don't speak Chinese today. I remember in 91, I went to visit friends in Xinjiang, and my friend's father had to find an interpreter to speak with me because he did not speak Chinese. To offset their disadvantage in terms of not be able to learn the subject in Chinese, the students was given a special college program, which is a 5-year instead of a 4-year. They will be accepted to complete the first 1 year of pre-college courses. Upon completion, they will start a regular 4-year college courses, classes, and to be trained, as engineers in terms of civil engineer, mechanical engineer, electronic engineer, and so on. So, unlike other universities, our university has a bigger population of Muslims. So we have a much bigger halal cafeteria. In China, the Chinese government respect the Muslim students and no, we don't want to mingle with the pork-eating Han Chinese. So they build, by law, they are required to provide halal cafeterias in colleges and in the workplace. So because we have over 500, students, Muslim students from Xinjiang, our halal cafeteria is much bigger than, say, my cousins who studied in a nearby university. And our food is always better. My Han roommate always said, my food was better and than the food they bought from their cafeteria. So sometimes I share my food as treat with my roommates. This is just shows how China, to make sure the ethnic minorities have good access to college education, to break the poverty spell on their ethnic groups. This is really contrast to what is practiced in the United States. I came to the United States for graduate school. In my department that year, they have 8 slots for graduate students. Those slots, it's like a basic free college education program. You don't have to pay for the degree when you provide either a teaching assistant or research assistant to the professors in the department. So the A slot was awarded to 3 white students and 5 foreign students, 3 from China, 1 from Israel, 1 from Poland. Honestly, I didn't feel I was so much qualified, better than any African-American college grads. My English was not as good as theirs. My understanding of sociology, this subject, was not so much better than a student from African-American students from, even from, UIC. But I was given such a opportunity. If it's not like, we can do a better job than African-American students. But, this opportunity was given to foreigners, 5, not a single one to African Americans. And this is not something that can happen in China, but in American higher education, there was a special benefits were not equally available to African Americans. So out of the 8 students, I think only 5 was graduated with a degree. I think at least 1 white student and 2 the foreign student did not complete. So why the opportunity was wasted? That if an African American student was able to get this opportunity upon graduation, they will get into a middle class life like me. But those opportunity was not available to African Americans. So I don't feel there is the affirmative action actually help so much the African American community. I support Black Lives Matters because I think the unequal access to decent education in terms of middle school and especially higher education has not been available to African Americans to help them lift them out of poverty. The special policy need to be in place to help African Americans, just like the Chinese help the Uyghurs and other ethnic group from Xinjiang when they are not qualified to get accepted to a college program, but they lower the threshold to accept students from Xinjiang and other minorities from Xinjiang. In China, the government has making a point to promote the status of minorities, not to marginalize the minorities, to integrate the minority in the main society. You will see, in the state-sponsored celebration program, you always see the performance by ethnic and minorities in their traditional dresses to showcase their culture. China built many tourist destinations to ethnic area to promote a local economy through tourism. Well, you haven't seen that with the Native American population in America. You barely hear anything about Native American in America. Native Americans has been marginalized intentionally by the American society. And those cases is not true for China. China is very keen to bring in all ethnic groups in as part of the whole Chinese culture. Another thing I want to talk about that very few people know about, how Chinese government help actually provide education opportunity for Africans. In the university just next to mine, they have a special program to accept African students from African nations. Just like we are accepted by America with scholarships, the Chinese government extends scholarship to African students. And but also China actually provide much more than that. In my days in college, there was 8 girls sharing one dorm, and our dormitory at best is like public housing in the United States. That's kind of the quality of the students' dorms in my days. But for the African American, for students from Africa, with the scholarship provided by the Chinese government, they live in a condominium level of housing, and there was only 2 in per room, or 1 or 2 per room. I know some of them because I used to work for American teacher who were in China, and she dated these students from Tanzania. So I know quite a few of students from Africa during that time. If there's a discrimination in China, it's more like reverse discrimination. That the foreign students at the time came to China on Chinese government's sponsorship, and they were given a better living condition than a regular Chinese. So there were actually events that fights and protests against such a policy, that the Chinese students was treated as second-class citizens compared to foreign students. In a sense, there was some kind of reverse discrimination against Han Chinese to promote the status of Muslim or different other ethnic groups in China, just because of the such a small population, ethnic groups, and China does not want the ethnic groups to be marginalized as the way the Native Americans has been marginalized in the United States. I hope you can learn this from my personal experience of being a minority student in China, and a witness of how Chinese government help African countries to train their students. There's absolutely no racism in China, institutional racism that you see in the United States, in terms of housing, in terms of education. In China, if there's a discrimination, unfortunately, it's more like a reverse discrimination. just to prevent marginalization of the ethnic groups in China. Overall, I think China has the best policy towards minorities in the world compared to any other country. You probably never see any government make such a priority to promote the quality of life of the ethnic groups, especially living in those remote areas. If you compare the Native Americans living reservations and two ethnic groups living, far away mountains, you will see the difference, and you will see the benefit of a socialism and the capitalism, because the socialism focus on equality, and they will promote disadvantaged groups in the society as versus the American capitalism to actually penalize the ethnic groups, that socially disadvantaged ethnic groups, through democracy or a market economy. I hope everyone will have a chance to listen my story and go to China to look at how Chinese government has helped to lift 8 millions of people out of poverty, and majority of them are ethnic minorities. Do not fully believe what the media has been preached to you. Like I always enjoy the book written by MIT professor, Manufacture of Consent. What you learn about China is manufactured of consent by corporate controlled media.